Welcome to Nacht, Waffen Pilot with Penny Bradley. This is my returning guest, Moon Shadow, who is a distant cousin, and we share ancestry. And he's here to talk about another cousin in our shared line. And sadly, the man has passed. So I'll let you go from here.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you for having me back on the show. Yeah, I am here to talk about my cousin who has recently passed. We both come from the Jefferson bloodline, and he was my friend, my teacher, my mentor, and he just was an amazing man, and he fought a very tough battle from for about 30 years with what what the doctors called cancer, but we weren't really sure exactly what it was. And I just wanted to kind of come on the show after his passing and um, share some of the insights and some of his life with everybody. He started off um, in the Navy. He joined the Navy in around age 30, and so he was a little bit older than most of the other people in the Navy. Might come in a little bit younger. Uh, the interesting thing was he scored a perfect score on the naval entrance exam.
Hmm,
So he didn't miss any questions.
that's impressive.
And yeah, very, very impressive. And so he scored so high that they made him retake it. And he said he missed the very last question because he's like, I'm not taking this thing again, you know.
I get that way too sometimes, yeah.
So that was pretty amazing. He had AB negative blood type, if you know people into
Okay.
the blood type, and he was just a brilliant person. He was probably one of the smartest people that I ever had encountered, and he could just come up with all kinds of amazing ideas, and he could reverse engineer almost anything. So when he got into the Navy, and this is, what he was telling me about. The first thing he did was he swapped his credentials or whatever he was supposed to do or wherever he was supposed to go with somebody else. So he was supposed to go to the Lake Erie, and
Mm,
this was the Navy flagship. And said he swapped his whatever his papers with somebody else, and he was in some other platoon because he was he was just kind of wild. He always just did his own his own thing. And so they found him, and then they put him on um, the Lake Erie there, and this was a very um, special ship. This was the
Um,
flagship.
before you go further, what's his name?
Desmond.
Desmond.
Yeah, yeah. So Desmond's he was on the flagship on the USS Erie, and this was the ship they went into Desert Storm. So right out of boot camp, he went right to war, and they were in Desert Storm. And the ship, he said, the ship had a golden anchor um, because it was
Really?
the flagship there.
Ooh,
And
I
the
didn't know they
first
did
thing
that.
he Yeah, the first thing he noticed was there's not enough lifeboats for everybody on the ship.
Ooh,
So he said that he wanted to learn every part of the ship, and he joined and he learned all the different how everything worked on the ship. And the captain, brought him in the office and said that everybody on all the different departments on the ship wanted him to work with them because he went around with his little notebook and he would just try to learn as much as he could, and he wanted to know how to um, drive the ship, how to, he was part of the fire brigade, and he was a signal person and everything. And to be able to drive the ship, that's like I forget what they call it, quartermaster. I forget what they called it, but he said that was like, for the captain to pick you to drive the ship into battle, that was very prestigious and stuff. And he
Yeah.
said you can't make any mistakes, you know, because you got the whole fleet behind you. And you can't, he said, he's like, I just wanted to go to McDonald's. Yeah, I heard they had a McDonald's. But he was always joking and stuff. But he said he drove the ship, he was the one driving the ship into battle during the desert storm. And he said when he got there, um, he was always joking around. He was talking about how he would take the missiles and he would write his name on the missiles before he he shot they shot him over there and stuff. He would write little slogans and stuff um before
I
they
was
they
surprised when I heard people did that. Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I thought that was just something, pretty funny. Um And he said the other funny thing was, he said, because in the Navy, once they shoot the missiles, he said, for them, the war, that's pretty much it. It was like um, their part was pretty much done. He's like,
Mm.
that's it, it was, and so he had a lot of, adventures on the ship, and they would, go to different, ports and islands. And he said that because it was the flagship, they did a lot of special missions. So they went to the Bermuda Triangle, and he said that they would turn on a certain frequency, and he said they would shoot down like UFOs and stuff. And he explained that when the ship went on some of these special missions, some of the crew they would send a certain signal. So some of the crew they lived in these they called them coffins where their beds were, and they would send a certain signal through the ship, and these people who were in their barracks or coffins would go to sleep, and they wouldn't know exactly what's what everybody else is doing on the ship. So they there might be a mission where they're going through a portal or doing something unique, even though this is not a spaceship, it's just a regular ship. um, he said that other members of the crew might be asleep, and you had to be a special member in order to do some of these things. And
Wow.
there were all kinds of different adventures and stuff that he did. And so here's a picture of him on the ship there when he was back in the day.
Did you hit
So
share screen? Because I'm
oh,
not seeing it.
okay, let me share the screen here. Um, let's see.
Okay.
Can you see?
There he is.
There he is. So here he is on the right there. And then this is the ship where we were and this ship has been decommissioned now.
Well, yeah, the Gulf War was a long time ago.
Yeah. And that's where he was just made that slide where he used to sign the missiles before he went. So on the ship, one time he was at a port and they went for leave and stuff, and he said it was really dark. And he came back on the ship, and when you come back on the ship, you have to log in. And
Yeah.
somebody handed him a pen to get back on the ship, to show the log, sign into the log. And it was a red pen. So when you sign in, you're not supposed to use um, a red pen. And so when you when you sign stuff into the log, it you can't change the log. Okay. And so it caused, I'm not exactly sure what it caused, but um, they had to change a lot of stuff and they had to go to port because he signed in with like it was almost like an ancient maritime. It was like he owned the ship. He didn't own the ship, but
Ooh.
they, they go by these weird things. So you got this, top secret, billion-dollar ship here, and he signed with Red. So it was a problem. Somehow it was a problem. And you can't take it off the log. So what happened was then everybody who was on the ship, they were trying to get rid of him. And so um, he had to, do some things. So he started training. He was in Hawaii and, he told his family. And so he was training with the Hawaiian, almost like the Yakuza over there in Hawaii, teaching him martial arts to protect, because there were many attempts on his life just to throw him overboard, all because of this incident. Now, one minute he's, the top sailor on the ship. Next minute, now he's being, hunted and they're trying to figure out how they can get rid of him. Now, because he was training with these um, members of this Hawaiian tribe, a lot of the other servicemen who weren't officers on the ship were Hawaiian, and they were protecting him.
That
But
helps.
still, um, it was very dangerous, for him. You're trying to do your job, and then you got people on there who don't want you there. So what happened was, um,
Actually, I know that feeling all too well.
yeah, not a good feeling. Um, so what happened was they took him out um, to international waters, he said, and the doctors there, not the head doctor, he refused to do it, but the second in command injected him in his liver with something, and we still don't know what it was. Um, and that's when he got what we call it cancer, but it wasn't really cancer, but it was, definitely something that, um, acted like cancer in him. And so he was medically discharged, 100% disabled veteran, um, from the Navy. Okay. And this, really changed his life. He was really he was a great officer. He was, but that one incident changed everything. And whatever was in this vial, it did something to him. Now he was already, like I said, he was already smart. He always already had, some good, interesting genetics, we'll say. He had some interesting numerology. He was, he had the 33 life path.
Ooh,
Because
I
he
I
was,
have the 22.
you have the
So
22.
I
Okay.
have the 22. The 33 is really
Very
really an
rare.
important.
Yeah. And so um when he got out, he the cancer started, and so he had um, a number of diagnosis, and they pretty much told him that he was gonna die at that time. Now, this is
About
like
what year was that?
this is probably about 30 years ago.
Okay.
Okay. So, and that's when, um, he came to the university, and that's when I kind of met him. And when I met him, I met his wife. His wife, was a secretary at the university where I was at, and she had the same, last name and as my mother. And I was like, okay, so you have, about the Jefferson line and everything. And she was like, oh yeah, my husband, we've done all the genealogy and everything. I was like, okay. So
Uh,
then one day she calls
just a
me
minute.
up.
For the audience, I'm descended from Jefferson's sister,
Okay.
not Jefferson himself.
Right.
Go ahead.
So on my side, so Thomas Jefferson had he had a mistress who was Sally Hemings.
Mhm.
And Sally Hemings was Jefferson's wife's half sister. So
Mm.
they were related. So so Jefferson had, the chocolate and the vanilla. Had both had
There's a
had both
lot
of
of
them.
ethical issues about making your slave your mistress.
Right.
And
And there's
yeah,
a lot of, history, people in the family have said, well, they were really in love and stuff, and they went, when all he took her to France and everything, and then other people, she was still a slave, and all those things.
yeah.
A lot of things we can't change, but
A lot of
very in
things from that time period are being trying to be forced back upon us. And I think
yep,
it's important that we acknowledge there were serious ethical issues.
yeah, definitely very serious ethical issues. Yeah, but there was also interesting. So Sally Hemings went to um, France with Thomas Jefferson, a little
Mhm.
sidebar. And
Yeah.
the Hemings family is who brought macaroni and cheese here to the United States. So everybody likes macaroni and cheese. That came from that interesting union there. So actually, Sally Hemings' brother, who um, who did that. So we wouldn't have macaroni and cheese if it wasn't for Thomas Jefferson, Sally Hemings, and uh, her brother.
Well,
So I met my cousin, and it was like when we met, it was like we were brothers. We both
awesome.
had like little, crystals in our pocket. And we both had a little quartz crystal in our pocket. And I took him around. Where I lived at the university, near the university there. Our family had been there for almost 300 years. So we had a family cemetery. I showed him where my mother got married in the family church, and my grandfather, where he was born on the, off campus in the seminary, right next to the seminary there. So we were having a great time and just, reminiscing. But what I didn't know was that my cousin had escaped from the hospital, and they told him that he only
What?
had,
He
yeah, a few
escaped?
days to live. So he came to see his family in Ohio, and they, he was just, I just, met him, and we just felt like we were brothers automatically.
Mhm.
And but I didn't know he was sick. He wasn't acting like he was sick. And that they had told him that he was going to, die in a few days. The
Mm.
other weird thing was there was an Amber Alert out for him, and I had never
An Amber
heard of
Alert on an adult.
on an adult. I had never heard of an Amber Alert on an adult, but there was an Amber Alert out for him. So he had escaped. And so what that kind of piqued my interest in,
I
the
bet.
government um kind of knew he was special. And so they were,
Yeah,
they
they put an
they were
Amber
they were
Alert
looking out.
out on an adult. Yeah,
Right, right.
they know he's special.
Yeah. So, and I'll get into that a little more. Whatever they injected him with was, let's just say, government property, and so they monitored their property and stuff. So
I know that
he,
feel.
yeah, so he goes back and he has his, and I didn't know he was, going back at the time. I just had met him that one day. And then the one of the secretaries said, he's going into have some cancer removed. He's a big surgery and stuff. And I know, and the secretary was saying, I know you do that energy work. You might want to help him out. And I said, yeah, you know what? I think I will. So it was real interesting. So I was doing some remote viewing of him, and I blindfolded myself, and I'm in the etheric, and I could see a holographic version of him,
Yeah.
out in the ether. So I'm doing my healing stuff and clearing stuff. And one of the things I always do, and I recommend everybody do, is cutting non-beneficial cords. So I'm
Yes.
cutting these cords from him, and then I cleared generational curses. And when I
Awesome.
cleared generational curses in the ether, there was an explosion, like boom. And I was like, whoa,
Wow.
that's different. I've never
Wow.
never experienced, that before.
I know I
Um,
had to deal with generational curses when my kids were still little. It was
mm,
becoming a real problem. I was Pentecostal in those days, and that was the approach I took to it. And I did a lot of generational curse work on my family. Uh, I hope you
yeah,
don't share those ancestors.
yeah. Well, I recommend everybody really, do that. But it was just really unique because of that explosion.
I
So this
bet.
was like, yeah, I had never, done any energy work where there was an explosion. And it was almost like a supernova, like woof, enough that I had to take the blindfold off and like, hey, did that just happen? Um, and keep in mind, I'm in Ohio and he's in Michigan, so I'm not anywhere near him. This is all remote and stuff.
Did he
So
know you were doing this in case he
no,
felt
he
that?
did not
Ooh,
know that I was doing it at all. So then I get a call in December. So I don't even know what's going on. I don't know, I didn't even have his number. I just was trying to help out where I could, you know. And he calls me up. He's like, "Hey, cuz, how you doing?" Um, I'm back. The surgery I went into the surgery and I told the doctor, I don't think there's any cancer there. I said, I don't even think you even need to do it. And the guy, the doctor just, kind of laughed at him and stuff.
yeah, they
And
do
he
that.
said when they opened him up, there was still some, but a lot
Uh-huh.
of it was gone. It was, it wasn't there, but there's still something there. So he was going through recovery, and he said, I really, like hanging out with you. I like to, work with you, and let's, stay in touch. So we stayed in touch, and that's where, kind of the, my adventure with him, started. So I brought him back down to Ohio, and he was going through a different treatment and stuff. Now, remember this is him after the cancer, or what
Okay.
we call cancer. Okay, so this is him in the Navy,
Yeah.
and this is after what we're calling stage 4 cancer.
Okay.
All right. So it did something. It definitely enhanced his so I would go around and at that time I wasn't working at the university. I would take him to the VA to get his
Mm.
treatment. And we call it, I don't know, it was a shot. So they would shoot him with this chemo treatment, and the needle was about this big. I'm not even
Ooh.
exaggerating. And he had to get it every month.
Ooh.
And it
I would
was
be
in a,
scared just seeing that. Ooh.
oh yeah, yeah, he wanted me to see it and stuff. And it came in a little lead box. And he said the treatment they was
In
about
a lead,
$10,000
a
per
lead
shot.
box,
Hmm? What did
a
you?
lead box.
Yeah, lead. It was, yeah, radioactive. Yeah. So they would inject, and all the doc, they had all this stuff, around them to, protect, any, like if you had to go to the bathroom or anything, they had to, clean up the fluids and everything because he was highly, radioactive and stuff. But he had to take this shot. So I would take him there, and then he would be on a cane. And I'm thinking, you want to go home? He's like, no, take me to the gym. I'm like, take you to the gym? I said, don't you want to, go home, get some? He's like, no, shut up. Just take me to the gym. So I take him to the gym,
Hmm.
and then he like, put 400 on the bench. I was like, 400? You can barely walk. You just shut up.
Do what I tell you,
Yeah,
son.
just do what I say. So I put the weight on the bench press, and he would throw the cane down, and then he would just start hitting it. And it wasn't struggling. He was like boom, 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 boom. And it was just amazing. And this was at a university, and there would be all these, younger guys and, girl, everybody would kind of look around and watch him because he's not that big. He's really not that big to be doing that. Um, and it was really, impressive.
I bet.
So I was, I'm a scientist, so I was like, man, I got to figure this out. What's, 1 minute he's on the cane, next minute he's doing this stuff, and I was just trying to, figure it out. And so I started training with him, because I was hooked. My scientific mind was like, what is going on? How is he doing this?
The shots.
Yeah, yeah, it was, well, the shots was part of it.
Okay.
Okay. And his understanding of the universe was the other part. So
Okay.
I was observing him, but he was also observing me. So I became his experiment. He wanted to see if he could replicate what he was doing in me.
Without the
Okay.
shots.
Without the shots.
Okay.
So he would, I got to a point, I think I have a picture in here where yeah, he's curling right there. He's curling 100 on each arm.
Wow. Uh,
Okay.
reality is, guys, I can't do even 10 pounds without moaning and groaning and making weird faces.
Right. So, yeah, training with him was very hard. And he liked me because I kept coming back.
Good.
I didn't start off, I got to a point where I could do 100. The most I ever saw him do was 120. He was doing 100. When I was doing 100, he was doing 120 and stuff. And the secret was when I first, when I was like just trying to do 50, um, I said, what is it that you're doing? What's going through your head when you're moving the weight? He's like, the weight isn't there. You
Yeah.
said you keep staring at the weight, thinking that it's there. He said, turn your head away from the weight and just lift it. I'm glad I got this picture because that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not there. Now keep in mind, he's stage 4 cancer. Okay. And
Yeah.
he said, because there is no stage 5.
I know. Stage four
Yeah,
is when
that's
they're
it.
when they're dying. Yeah.
Right.
But
Oh,
I do know that that's what some of the folks who bend spoons do is there is no
hmm.
spoon. Yeah.
Right.
That
And that's how I,
it's
I was able to, move the way you have to just, understand that we're in a holographic reality.
hmm
None of this stuff is real. The weight's not real. We're a vessel. We're a soul inside of a vessel. Okay. And once you understand that, then you can start manipulating reality. So he, was a reality manipulator, and that's why they wanted to, control him so much. Now that was the first time. So over the course of time, my cousin died and came back to life 9 times. And in those
that's
nine
a good
times,
record.
yeah, over, and this last time was the ninth time. And he told me, he said, I'm not coming back this time. I think it was the fifth time he said he went to the 11th dimension and he saw that we made it. Humankind made it. And he said the only reason why he came back, he's like, I wanted to figure out how you guys did it, you know.
I'd like to know how we did it.
Yeah. So that always gave me a little bit of a hope. Like, okay, well, we've done it, you know, and we can do it, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
The only reason
and
we're having problems now is because a portion of our population doesn't think we need to.
right, right. And I think, and this kind of goes into some of the, like project, looking, I think they've seen that we do it, and that's what they're afraid of, us, you know,
Yeah.
winning, and so they go back in time and try to change different things. So my cousin had all kinds of um, abilities, not just the super strength was one of them. He also could communicate with animals. um, One time, like a hummingbird would just land on his shoulder. um, And one time he said the other thing you have to, do is, he was always telling me, you got to raise your vibration, raise your vibration, raise your vibration. And, I trained with him for probably about 3 years. And one time, he's like, I want you to raise your vibration, and then I'm going to bring you into my reality. And I'm like, what do you mean? I've been standing next to you all this time and driving you around. He's like, no, you haven't been in my reality. So we went to the gym, we
I,
worked out.
what's weird is I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, even though you're, we think that we see other people, but sometimes even though you see a person on the street, they're not in the same reality as
No.
you know, and you just don't know that. So we went to work out, and then we went over to Five Guys burger, And we opened up there's two sets of doors. Open up the first set, and then the guy runs from behind the counter and opens the door for us. And I was like, oh, that's really weird. And we go, order some burgers. He runs back and, takes my order. And I said, I want a burger and fries for me and a burger and fries, for my cousin. He said, okay. And I give him my card. And then he takes his fingers like this and he says, I got you. And I'm like, okay, what is that? And my cousin just starts, laughing. And so, I get my receipt and then they call my number and I get a burger and fries and I get a burger and fries for him. And then the guy said, wait, I got his order too. And he's like, I got you. And I said, no, I think we got everything. He's like, no, we got you. And so then we ended up with four burgers and four fries. And my cousin starts laughing. He says, just come on. And he said, even though you're next to me, I live in a different dimension. And when I'm vibrating properly, even before I get to a location, everything is already set up for me and everything is already going to go right for me. But the key is to, vibrate at that level. And then I started thinking back, I'd been with him for about 3 years. I was like, well, my life was a lot of chaos. Wherever we went with him, he
No
was fine.
chaos.
Yeah, he didn't have he was still dealing with, the cancer, but he didn't have chaos in his life. Everything
Yeah.
worked out for him, you know. He was, driving a, BMW, everything worked out um in his life. And he just said, I'm just trying to show you this so you can, show people that when you maintain that high vibration, that's the key to getting what you want, you know, in life. So we would have all kinds of adventures. We would go different places. Some of the other abilities that I saw him with weather manipulation, he could
Mm.
make it rain on one side of the road and then not on the other side, and then do the
Now
same.
that's skill.
Yeah, it was
I've
pretty.
been able to call in storms. I've been able to stop storms when we were flooding. I've
Hmm.
not been able to separate it by the side of the road.
Yeah,
So that, yes, that's impressive.
yeah. The other one, a cyclone. So it wasn't like a tornado, but it was like a little dust storm. I saw him produce a little, it was probably maybe about, you know, 15 foot high, but it was just a little,
Whirlwind.
but yeah, whirlwind. There you go. A little whirlwind that he was
I
able to
do that
produce.
without thinking about it when I get mad.
Yeah, yeah, that's
It
yeah,
it annoys the neighbors.
right. So I'm glad you brought that one up. So one time he lived in an apartment. So one time he asked me to go get some new plants. So the energy that he would generate, you got to remember, energy is not created or destroyed. So it has to come from
True.
someplace. So he had always had a lot of plants in the house, and he would kind of drain the plants. He was always getting new ones. If he had an
Um,
avocado, like a green avocados,
um, I
a
have
bowl.
a power line just about 10 feet the other side of this wall.
Oh, and
I just draw from the power line.
you just pull from the power. Well, he would pull from the plants and stuff. And once I figured that out, like we buy some avocados and they would all be green in the morning, and then by the evening they would all be brown. So he was pulling that energy. So what I did was I took him to the forest, and so he could charge up. And when he was doing
Yeah,
that, when I had him in the forest, he was, his health really was doing a lot better and stuff.
yeah.
And that's
What
when
did the forest do?
he was able to pull all the energy from the trees and ground himself
Hmm.
and tap into all the, and the forest where it was at, it was kind of a nature preserve, and there were a lot of um, we'll say witches, good witches that did a
Okay.
lot of, positive, rituals and stuff. So there's a lot of good energy. You could really feel it buzzing when you walked. And we would just do a lot of walks there, and we just talk about, different things he would be, teaching me. So sometimes I would be talking to him, and then sometimes I would be talking to what they injected inside of him. And this is a part I really didn't
Okay.
talk about um, with other people before. So whatever they injected him it was on, we called it Kundalini, but it was like a entity. And it was, it had consciousness, and you could feel it. And sometimes you would see his eyebrow go up, and it would be looking through, he said it would be looking through him. And he said, whatever it is, most humans on this planet would not be able to control it. So what he explained was he was a vessel, and he was keeping it asleep inside of him so it wouldn't wake up into this universe. And so
That
even
takes
though
a
he
lot
had
of
all this,
effort.
yeah, so he was controlling this entity inside of him. And it wasn't like it was evil or anything, but he said he had to learn to talk to it, communicate with it, and saying, hey, we're in the same body. We just have to work together and stuff. And it would give him, and sometimes I would ask him questions. Now, it would be the same voice, but I knew I was getting something from somebody else. It wasn't him,
Yeah.
you know.
I shift alters, and so Lou has a similar experience with me.
Hmm.
Same face, same voice, but different person.
Yeah, it's like a different person.
Yeah.
So one of the experiences, like I took him to the um, hospital, and whatever this entity was, it could generate a lot of energy.
Okay.
Plus he's getting these nuclear shots, and then this
Yes.
entity. So one time there were two nurses. One was on like a
Excuse me.
Zoom call in the room with him, and then there was another nurse, and they were talking about giving him some type of medication that the Kundalini energy did not like. They were
Oh,
trying to suppress it and stuff. And the lady said it just started heating up. She said she could barely keep her clothes on because of the heat that he was in. And when he was at the apartment, the funny thing was they kept changing his thermostat because on the apartment above him, he was in the middle, and the below him, because they weren't generating any heat. They weren't getting any, the thermostat wasn't, um, they weren't selling any gas. So they thought it was
oh,
broken because he would generate so much heat in his body that they didn't need any, didn't need to turn the heat on in the building and stuff. And another time when I took him to the VA, they did some type of heat test where it set off so many alarms on the machine. The guy who was running the test said that this it looks like you're on fire, like the machine is registering, but he's like I'm he was still conscious. It wasn't anything going on. um Another time he was doing an MMRI machine where they put you in that big
yeah, the
uh,
MRI machine,
yeah,
magnetic
and he
resonance
lost
imaging.
he lost consciousness. And I'm in the lobby, and everybody starts running, and they start yelling and screaming, he's an asset, he's an asset. And they all start running into the room and stuff. And I was like, okay, that's weird. I was like, is that Yeah. He had
The last epidural I had in my, before I had my spinal fusion, they had knocked me out. And when I was coming out, they started talking about that I was an asset. And they were relieved that I didn't have any more um, procedures there.
wow.
I
Yeah.
don't I don't know what I told them while I was under, but they were scared of me after that.
Yeah. They definitely treated him, I saw the way they treated
Yeah,
the other
everything
veterans.
you're describing is consistent with they were turning him into a super soldier on the Earth base level.
Right. So
So,
when he went to one time he was out, and this is a few years back. Um, he was in Arizona, and he was with some other people there, and he was at the VA there, and he was trying to explain to them what he had, what his condition was, and asked the guy at the desk, he's like, just pull up my records and stuff. And true story, they pulled up the records, and the guy who was typing the stuff in, he's like, you got to come over and read this. This is in his military records. It said that he was what they called the second coming. Now, my cousin wasn't this, second coming, but that's what they termed him as because he had died and come back so many times,
oh,
you
okay.
know. Yeah. So I'm not saying he was, the second
You're
coming.
not saying he was a religious figure. You're saying that he couldn't
He
stay.
died. Yeah, he had
He
died so
didn't
many
stay
times.
dead.
Right. And so that's what they put into his, military records. One time he died, he was in surgery, and I think they tried to kill him, and they cut something that wasn't supposed to be cut. He was dead, and then he came back. He was dead for about 20 minutes and came back. Every one of the surgical team and medical team all retired that day. They said they had seen everything after because I think they killed him, to be honest. I think they killed him when he
On
came back.
purpose.
They were like, they all retired, every last one of them.
You think they killed him on purpose?
Yeah, I think they killed him I think they were ordered to kill him on purpose and stuff. And
Yeah,
he had,
I think that my medical staff, when I had my spinal fusion, was ordered to kill me.
mhm,
Um, they cut the nerve to my left vocal cord where I was having trouble talking, and I had a heart attack on the table. And they were all acting really weird the, whenever I came out of the surgery. I mean,
yeah.
acting really weird. So, um, yeah.
Another time he died, and he was actually in the morgue, and he came back.
Oh, gee. I've never
Yeah.
gotten that far.
Yeah, like he was on
No.
ice and came back. He's like, cause he'll call me, hey, I'm back. Um, and
Yeah,
so,
it hurts as much to come back as it does to die.
right, it, it
Did
it
he
does.
mention that too?
Yeah. And the interesting thing, um, because I always look at it from a scientific lens. Each time he did come back, um, he got stronger. He came back with more abilities. And I think there's something to that. And I had seen something with the SAS military where they would do a special, I mean, I don't even know if you want to call it a ritual or whatever, where they would actually kill their soldiers and then, put the chart, whatever those um, electrodes on them and then bring them back.
Like in the
And I
movie
think,
Flatliners?
kind of like that. And when you do that, I think it resets you in the matrix, And so whatever the matrix programming that you come in with, it kind of resets and then it activates a lot of your dormant abilities. And the fact that he had come back so many times, I think that was some of the reason why he had so many abilities. Like the weatherman. Also, he had when you were talking about the whirlwind.
Mm,
Um, when he got angry, we were going to Africa, and he got this phone bill, and it was like an $800 phone bill. So we go back to his apartment, and his apartment was trashed, like there had been a tornado in there, but there was no forced entry, and everything was, like laying down in a circle. So you could
yeah,
tell it was like some type of, whirlwind,
I have
that,
seen such. I haven't done it.
yeah. But and it's interesting because a lot of people are like, oh, in order to do this stuff, you have to um, be, just love and like. Now he was a good person, love, but he drank, he couldn't get drunk, but he did drink.
Mm,
He smoked the pipe, like a tobacco in a pipe and stuff, and every once in a while, a cigar and stuff. Um, But his motto was like, if cancer can't kill me, what are you going to do to me? You know, you know, he was a tough,
I
very tough.
I don't drink or smoke or do recreational drugs. Uh,
Right,
I don't metabolize them, and I really dislike dying and coming back.
right,
Um,
right.
I'm in double.
I don't do any drugs or I
I'm
don't.
in double digits, but
Yeah,
I do kind of have this attitude of if they won't keep me on the other side, what's the point in
right. Well, and that's,
You get what
you
I'm
come,
saying.
yeah, you're here for a reason.
I'm here for a reason, and as long as they won't let me stay on the other side, I might as well do the reason. Oh,
right,
I have context for this, people. It's almost 2 weeks ago. I was threatened by a member of an agency from another country. So yeah, I'm continuing to do what I do because I'm not allowed to stay dead.
right. You're here for a reason.
So
You're here for a reason, and I think he was here for a reason. That's what I'm trying to make sure I tell the story.
yeah,
I
I'm
think he
I'm
wanted.
glad you're telling it. First of all, he sounds like an incredible person that I wish I'd gotten to meet.
Yeah, yeah.
And secondly, a lot of what you're describing is kind of filling in blanks that I haven't figured out yet.
hmm
Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and
Because
and
if
I
you
and
don't if
that's
you don't have anybody else that's experiencing this stuff in your world, you're
right,
left wondering, and well, am I figuring this out right? Especially when everybody else just tells you you're nuts.
right. And I would get in his head and ask him because he had these abilities, and he got these abilities. It was like you get the superpowers, but you don't have a user manual.
Exactly.
So yeah, we would have to figure out how, he was doing this stuff. Some stuff he, would naturally just come. Like when I do energy work, I would use my hands. He's like, stop using your hands. I was like, because I gotta, just use your
No,
mind.
you
You get
don't.
mad at me.
It's just your mind. You don't. The
Yeah, you
hands
don't
are
need your hands.
the
Right.
hands are superfluous.
Right, right. And, but I had to, start with my hands. So just let me start, with my hands, and then I can do something. But yeah, if you don't have anyone to talk, and he would always make me do the talk, like he wouldn't tell people about it. And I kind of understood that I was put in the position where I am to tell his story.
Okay.
You never And I don't want anyone to think that I think my cousin was, Jesus, but Jesus didn't tell his story. There was always somebody next to him
Hmm.
telling the story of what he was doing,
Yeah,
you
we
know.
don't have any records from Jesus himself.
Right, right. And I realized that I was kind of there to witness, to bear witness to all of these different amazing things, that he did. Another thing in terms of the vibration, he said one time he woke up and he felt like his body was really vibrating and he saw a fairy, a real fairy, um, just looking at him, just flying in front of his eye, and he just,
Oh, you're
laid there.
talking about the mythical rather than the
Right. Yeah.
historical.
Yeah. Like a mythical little
Yeah,
fairy.
because the
And he,
people that Tuatha De Danann, I probably mispronounced that,
hmm
um, they were called fae or
Oh,
fairies in their own time.
okay.
And that described the phenotype of the white skin that doesn't tan at all,
hmm
um, bright red hair, and green eyes.
Oh, okay.
So that was the historical fae or fairy was
Right. Right. I think,
human. The mythological one are the little ones that are like Tinkerbell.
right. And he said that's what it was like. He said it had a little shimmer.
Okay.
Um, and he said the interesting thing, it didn't fly through the wall. It flew around and went out the door and then, disappeared. So later on, I found, a little article from someone who had gone through the gateway process, with the
Hmm.
CIA and stuff, and they were showing in this document that when they finished the process and went through it and everything, they could vibrate and they could see these fairies. So I sent him the picture and he was just so grateful. He's like, I wasn't crazy. That's exactly
Yeah.
what I saw.
When you're alone in the world and nobody talks to you about stuff, it's real easy to think you've gone insane. Yes.
Right. Right. And so that's why he liked me because, I was just as, nutty as him and stuff. And because we were family, he would tell
Mm,
me stuff that you probably, if it was just some stranger, you might not be able to talk about, you
yeah.
know. And he was very, he wanted to be normal, he
I
wanted to be
think
just like everybody.
I think
Yeah,
everybody wants to be normal, or at
right.
least normal enough to fit in without people looking sideways at you.
Right, exactly. But it wasn't until later on where I really realized how intelligent he was and how he was dumbing himself down just to hang out and just to try to be normal. I said, cuz you gotta stop, once I figured you gotta stop doing that. You're so far beyond it. You're just looking at us like, little, insects and stuff. You gotta,
No,
go on and
he
use your
wasn't looking at you like an insect. He was looking at you like what we are supposed to be.
right. But well, some people I think they were.
People don't understand that you reach a
Hmm
point where it's like you are so far out of sync with the rest
hmm
that you don't feel like you're extra smart. You just feel like you're weird.
Yeah. And he didn't like that. He didn't like feeling,
Yeah.
and so whenever um someone would ask a question that he would call me up and he's like, just you explain it to them. I don't feel like explaining it over and over again and stuff. So I would go through and tell
Well,
and explain every.
there's a reason I slowed way down on interviews.
Hmm
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, I
You can
understand.
only tell your basic story so many times before you're just sick of hearing it yourself.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. So, yeah, that, the fairy, that was pretty interesting. Um, the fact that he could tap into these different, frequencies was also pretty fascinating. He said, always, raise your vibration. So one time he took me,
Question before you change topic. When he was shifting to these other frequencies, was he in another body there? Or did he take his 3D body with him?
yeah, he was always in his 3D body. He
Okay.
was he was
Because
vibrating.
when I shift to other dimensions, I already have a body there and I'm just sort of sliding into it. That's why
Interesting.
I was asking, is because I have that experience. So I was asking if his was the same or otherwise.
Yeah. I think he was more in he could do something where his body would, vibrate, and he would be in a different frequency, or, you could call it a different almost dimension. And
Yeah.
I guess we all can do that. Most of us go down as opposed to,
It's easier
raising
to
up.
go down.
Yeah, raising our vibration up. But when you do raise your vibration up, that's when you get all of these different
That,
abilities and
that's when you
superpower.
get to see Fae and orcs.
Right, right.
People are
All
scared of
the
orcs, but they're a higher dimensional being.
hmm
You get to see dragons, real ones. You get,
hmm
yeah, all of the mythological animals that you see in stories, they're all higher dimensional beings. They're all there.
right. Just right outside of our
Yeah.
perception. And we're all in this lower, perception that
Mhm.
we can't tune into it. And it's a shame, because that's where all the fun is. That's where everything's going on. We're down
Uh,
in the
it's not all happening there.
yeah.
Each frequency node has its own good and bad
Oh
points.
yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. But in terms of, I'm saying, like, in terms of manifesting and stuff. So um he took me to this casino, and this was out in DC, and I had no business at a casino. I'd never been to a casino. I don't gamble, you know,
I
and
don't like gambling.
yeah, I only had, like, a few dollars to my name. And I was like, okay, I don't need to be here. But he's like, you're gonna go here, and, I'm gonna show you some stuff. So he said, I want you to raise your vibration, and, I'll show you how to manipulate these machines. And I said, okay. So, we were tuning in to the Jupiter frequency. So,
Okay.
all the listeners, if you find the Jupiter frequency, play that when you go to the casino. And so I would go to the casino. Now, I'd never been to a casino, but I always, in the back of my head, if I did go, what I would do. So we were playing the Jupiter frequencies. We were playing the penny slots. Put in, $20, and it's going through and everything.
Mm,
And I looked down the aisle, and other people are like putting money in continuously, and I was still playing for maybe a good 15 minutes.
mm,
I said, okay, I'm still on this. It would go up and a little bit go down.
mm.
And then his sister came by, and she hit the machine. She's like, you're betting too low, and like, raise it up, and did it. And then I lost everything.
Yeah.
So then he said,
You get
take
greedy
this.
and you lose it.
Right, right. He said, take this 20, go to a different machine, and go win. I was like, whatever. I got $20. I'm already winning. I'm ahead. And he said, yeah, just do it. I said, all right. So I go to this machine, had a bunch of dragons on it, put the $20 in, and now I'm raising my vibration. Now I was saying, Om, I've already won. Om, I'm a winner right now. Om, I was doing that. I was playing my on my phone. I had my Jupiter frequencies playing all at the same time. So anyone goes out, they can try that. I hit first time, put the money in. I was like at went up to 500. Ding 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 ding, super spin, doo doo, winner winner. I was like, "Oh, wow. This is, wild." Okay. And so I'm looking around, I'm like, okay, I'm winning. So in my mind, okay, is it going to go up more or whatever? So then this lady comes next to me and she's watching me play, and she kept on putting, you know, $20 in, and then I noticed that my that 500 started going down, but hers started going up, and it was like entropy. That's in chemistry. That's what we call it. It was like she was sucking my wealth energy, and it was coming into her, and she was pulling it out. And so I had to cash. I said, "Let me cash out." I think I cashed out like 350 when it
Okay,
was
I
going
want to
down.
tell you something about casinos because I've worked in them. I worked in uniforms, not in the level where people are spending.
Uh-huh.
Mm. They are set for a certain return on investment,
Hmm.
and it's 5% in California. That means for every $100 you put in, you only get $5 back.
Oh
Now,
wow.
that is the setting for the computer that actually runs the machines. So it wasn't that she was stealing your wealth, it was that the computer was sharing it,
Yeah. Well, it was pretty
redistributing it.
redistributing it. Yeah, there you go. So I
So
had to cash out though, or else no one
cas-
was going to believe the
casin-
story.
casinos was casinos are not a place where you make money unless you are so high vibe that you manage to convince the computer that you get all of that 5% return.
Right. Well, considering this was my first time at a casino, theoretically, you know, chances of me winning anything were very limited.
It's called
So,
beginner's luck for a reason.
and vibration, So we were
Yeah.
definitely, because other people would go with him and he would do the same thing. Like that was like a little thing in the family,
Okay.
to go to the casino with him, and everybody would win.
Yeah.
He was doing something. And the way he explained it was, if you take the casinos are based off of a random number generator. And if you
Theoretically.
theoretically, yeah, if you
Another thing that I know because I worked at a casino is that the
uh-huh,
people who walk around have these little things that they can let you win if they like you or keep you from winning if they don't.
oh wow, yeah,
There have been people at the casino that I worked at that they would watch the man belittle or berate the wife.
hmm,
He would never win, ever.
oh wow.
She would win, and he would really get
But
mad.
those were going off. There had to be some type of signal, right? That they were
They have their own little gizmo that they can send a signal and
right,
shut off wins on a particular machine until the person leaves.
right.
Yeah, they
So
have that.
there was
They
there,
have that capability.
yeah, that's pretty.
So always be nice to the staff.
Always be nice to the staff. Yeah, I don't recommend gambling at all. But the interesting thing was that I got out with my 350.
Good.
But during and then stop, didn't gamble after that. I never have again. Um, but at that same time code, I have an e-commerce site. I got $2,000 in sales
Awesome.
in the same period. So whatever was going on, something was definitely going on in the ether,
Good.
um, that, you know, he was saying, tapping into something that was, generating that wealth energy. So that was pretty amazing. And other people, other family members, he would take to the casino. Everybody won. Like, oh, I needed this money. Da, 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 da. So I can't explain how it was working. Um, I'm just, recounting, what, what kind of happened when we, um, when we went there. Some of the other, it's just, he just had so many different, amazing, um, things that he could, do. It was just, he's just a really amazing, and he was always helping people. If he would find, and he really was working with the veterans. Now he did a lot of work. He would go to like old train stations where there would be veterans who were homeless and stuff, and he would help them, um, get back on their feet. He would go out there and help them get their benefits and stuff with, he just have their
Almost a quarter of our homeless in California are veterans.
oh yeah. He really, really worked hard to help out other veterans. And that was, one of his biggest missions. And there was a guy he met at a gas station who was looking for his brother who was a veteran. And he told me the story. They went out there to some homeless shelter, and he said they were out there for about 8 hours looking for this guy, and they finally, it was like a needle in a haystack, and they found him,
Good.
and they got him some, housing and stuff, and got his paperwork and stuff together, and it was just really amazing how much he would, just go out of his way to, just help random strangers. And he had a vibration that when we went out, just it affected the late, he would just have ladies just come, I just want to hug you. And they would just come up and just want to, hug them and stuff. We just be walking in the woods, and random people, it might be a couple, and the guy's girlfriend, hey, I just really want to hug you for some reason. And then she she just hug him and stuff. And it was always just real funny. Just, everybody was always friendly. Even it didn't matter where we went, for the most part, a lot of, the people would, resonate with his frequency. Now it also, whatever his frequency, or whatever the Kundalini energy, was very protective. So one time we were driving, and there was a car coming towards us on the opposite side, and all of a sudden it stopped and then started going in reverse. And he explained that, he said that person has a demon in it, and it can sense the Kundalini energy in me, and it's running. So the demons didn't like him. They stayed away.
That's
And
helpful.
yeah, well, that was very helpful, and so when we were doing, we did some, he was a government contractor, so we did some stuff in Africa. The contracts there all had, at that level, the government contracts there had black magic on them because other people wanted the contracts and stuff. And so we used frequencies and stuff to counter their black magic. And these people, it was pretty funny. They actually emailed us and said, "You Americans are pretty strong." The black magicians emailed us and said, "Yeah, you guys are strong." I was like, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen. They
I've
they
been
took the time to say,
I've
"Yeah,
been
okay."
contacted by more than one black magician who asked me what kind of shielding I had. Yeah, yeah,
Mm. Yeah, that's, you're doing something
yeah.
when
When they
you when they have
yeah,
to stop and like, okay, this is something a little bit,
this is
you know,
this is new. This
yeah, a
works.
little bit different and
Yeah.
stuff. And so, in the work that I do, because I was around that vibration, I took on that vibration, and it's helped me. And I do a lot of, energy work and, helping people with, targeted individuals and who are, dealing with
Yeah,
black magic and covens and different stuff.
there's a lot of that.
Yeah, a lot of that, and I have a lot of clients that
The last year, I've encountered several black magicians that were under contract to the CIA.
oh wow,
And yeah, there's a lot of that.
yeah.
When they figure out they can't kill you and you stay dead, you suddenly encounter black magicians.
Yeah, they keep showing up and stuff. And through his training and stuff, I was able to deal with a lot of, and that's kind of the work that I do. So if anyone, needs some help, you can reach out and contact me. Um,
Yeah,
so
definitely. I'll make the arrangements if you contact me. I'll pass you on to who he is.
okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some of the other things that we kind of experience. Oh, he could reverse engineer different things. So
Mm,
um, he said everything any problem that he had, he would, find this, look at the solution and just play it backwards. And that's the way. And he always looked at things in what he called 10 directions. So it was like a crystalline thinking. He said, practice solving problems from 10 directions. No matter what the problem is, think of 10 different solutions for that problem. And even if it's a corny solution, because maybe two funny or ridiculous solutions might have two aspects of them that you put them together and they'll come up with another solution that might solve the problem
yeah.
and stuff. And he was, it was amazing just, watching him because I consider myself a smart person. I have a high IQ, but just the way he would solve things, he would come up with answers so quick. And I was like, man, I didn't see that. And it was just really amazing
I
how
think
he could.
that's actually what real intelligence is being able to find solutions quickly
Hmm.
because you see the connections that other people
Yeah,
are
you see
finding.
those different connections,
Yeah.
and that's something that I recommend everybody, start practicing is,
Hmm.
just coming up, even if they're silly solutions, just try to come up with, 10 different solutions for everything and just get your mind in that habit of trying to come up with these different 10 solutions. And then you take, maybe two of those silly solutions, put them together, and maybe they can make another solution that will actually, work,
Hmm.
and you can actually, push through. The other crazy thing that happened now, he, was dealing with the cancer. Um, they had to take blood from him, so they couldn't take it from his veins. So they had to put a catheter in his heart. In order to do that, he's allergic to morphine.
So my
So he was awake.
that might actually be family.
Yeah, he was awake, and they put in a catheter inside of his heart, fully awake, no anesthesia. His pain tolerance was unlike anything I had ever seen anybody. And when I talked to the doctor, because I asked him about, the lifting weight, what the doctor explained was that the pain that he was dealing with the what we called the cancer, was so intense that lifting the weights and, working out produced dopamine and he had super high levels of serotonin in his
Okay.
body, which allowed him to control the pain internally. It was probably more powerful than any pharmaceutical um, drug that they could give him. He had figured out a way to do it. And that in itself was, pretty amazing. But to have somebody put a stent, a catheter in your heart with no anesthesia and you're fully awake. And it was same day surgery. He wasn't, he came out. Now, one time when he was in, just to talk about his pain tolerance, um, I saw him come out of a surgery. His stomach was cut up. He wakes up, and the first thing he does is he gets out of bed, and how the little, the floor has little tiles, and he
Yeah.
just tries to walk, two tiles, two tiles. He's like, I got too much to live for. I said, cuz, don't you need to rest? And he's like, no, I got too much to live for. And it was in a cancer ward, and he just kept on, he's still bloody, he's still bleeding and stuff. He just kept on trying to get up and keep moving. And that when I saw that, that was probably the strongest thing I'd ever seen anybody do. Coming straight out of surgery, waking up, and he was just taking little bitty steps. And it was such a big deal that the news crew um, came and they were talking about they did a story about him in the cancer
Hmm.
ward. And he motivated all the because everybody else in the cancer ward was like, oh, I got cancer. He's like, he would just be trying to take a couple steps and keep walking until he was walking back and forth down the um, hallway there in his little, nightgown. Now he's escaped. I think he said he's escaped probably about 14 times from hospitals. He was always, and so they would take his clothes. And he said one time he didn't even have anything on. He just had his little thing, and he jumped on some bus. All he had was, a little thing. He
His
was
little
always
gown.
escaping, little gown, escaping from the hospital and stuff. That was his thing. They would take his clothes because they thought he would, that was going to stop him from escaping and stuff, but he was always trying
Uh,
to get out.
yeah. Sounds like they underestimated his will to
Yeah.
leave.
Oh yeah, they always underestimated him and stuff. And one time he was there, after, a surgery, so I'm outside. There are these, kind of, agency type people, black suits, tie,
Oh,
wait,
yes.
outside, and I'm walking in, and I hear him say, "Why doesn't he let us help him?" So, there were people in, the government that knew who he was and what he was, and then there were people that didn't want him, so you got both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
And one time, there was a chaplain who called me, and she started asking me all these questions about what I had seen him do and stuff. And I told her all these, different stories and everything. And she's like, don't tell anybody who he is. I'm like, well, who do you think he is? You know, because I think
Yeah.
he's just my cousin. So it
I
was
think
weird.
I think the proper term is super soldier.
Right, right. So that's also in his medical records. Okay, after the surgery, and this was probably maybe the third surgery that he came back from. Um, and when he died and came up, most of them were on the operating table, except for a couple of them.
Mm.
Um, and he was doing the surgery, and they had a special, he said there was a special surgeon that came from Switzerland to cut on him. And in his medical records, they said that they harvested these eggs off of his liver to inject into other soldiers. So whatever
They
they
what?
injected him, yeah, whatever they injected him with, okay, had egg. It wasn't really cancer. It was some type of eggs or something. And it says, and this isn't classified or anything, it's in his medical records, that they were injecting it, they were taking those and putting them into other soldiers
That's
to,
scary.
yeah, to get some of these same abilities, you know. So if you think
And
about it,
he had to work so hard to keep that thing
he had to
under
work
control.
hard to contain, he said whatever was inside, he had to keep it asleep, you know. And you know, she would, it was a she.
Obviously,
Um,
if it's eggs.
yeah, it was a she, and she, you know, she would wake up, and I could feel, you know, sometimes I could feel the energy, you know, I could feel like she was, you know, looking at me, you know. If she didn't like you, you know, you're in for it, you know. But she, you know, she would study me, and she, you know, and she, he said she could look through his eye, and sometimes his eyebrow would go up, you know, and I would ask questions and stuff, you know, just about the universe and, you know, all kinds of stuff. And it was like a download. He would, you know, all of a sudden he would just start talking about stuff. And he explained that, you know, human beings are going to be transcending into Homo luminous. That's what he described. And that's what Jesus became. He became Homo luminous. And eventually that's where we're, you know, we're going to become. And they're, you know, people out there that don't want that, want us to become
There
this.
are a large number of people who want us to be replaced by an AI.
Right. To control. Yeah.
I've done several conference presentations where I talked about some of the recently declassified programs. Yes, I'm trying to talk about declassified stuff, so I'm not breaking the law.
Right.
um, but one of the websites, and it's on a .mil site, so it's U.S. Army. Uh, they talked about that their goal was initially to share your body with the AI and eventually for the AI to take over your body and be the boss.
Hmm.
And I see no reason for an AI to be incarnated into a human body.
Right.
I mean, even the Borg let you stay.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. There's no purpose in it.
I don't see a purpose to creating a Borg species whenever we are better than that on our own.
Right.
Finally, got the camera where it belongs.
Yeah, there's no purpose in becoming a Borg species, you know.
Yeah.
Especially,
I,
you know, when I see people, any, even, you know, you and my cousin who, you know, from my research, you two were probably um the strongest that I've been, because I'm around, I was around him. I can sense when, you know, when I come across somebody like, oh yeah, I have, you know, if you're not at Penny's level or you're not at my cousin's level, yeah, you're not really, you know, you're not really playing in the same ballpark as You
Well,
know. So.
there are days I wish I wasn't. I'm 70 years old. Come on.
Yeah,
I would
you're
really
doing great, you know.
thanks.
And you know, and you could even tell, you know, he looked pretty young just for um he looked like he aged, you know, he was aging pretty good. Um
Yeah.
this is him in down in South America. But he always had um
Who's the
this
lady with it?
connection with the animals and you know tapping into the energy. I tried to keep him around the forest and stuff just because he could pull that energy and
Yeah.
ground, you know, so
Yeah.
much. And I recommend
We
that to everybody.
we go into places and animals are just all over Lou, my partner. So
Oh yeah. So
I've seen
my
people like that. Uh, Children and animals, they look at me funny and eventually decide I'm okay.
yeah.
But it's a process where I get skunk-eyed a lot.
hmm Yeah. Because you're,
Yeah,
you know, it's the vibration, yeah.
yeah, I'm different, yes.
And so people who, you know, are used to lower vibration um energy, and when they encounter somebody who has, you know, that high vibration, it throws them off, you know. And especially when you're pulling energy from the universe and not vamping off of, you know, other people and stuff.
Yeah, well, that's
The,
why I
the
pull off the electric cable is so I'm not
yeah,
vamping with
I wish I had told them about that. That might have helped them,
yeah,
you
that way
know.
I'm not vamping off anybody.
Right.
I don't want to drain anybody else. I mean, come on.
Well, the other funny story was that, you know, he was stage 4 cancer, so he hadn't been in relations with anybody for quite some time, about 6 years. So
Well, he was
he
radioactive too.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was radioactive, yeah. And so he meets up with this stewardess and he explains everything, you know, like I haven't had, you know, sex in, you know, 6 years. And so she was like, okay, yeah, all right, you know, everything. And so he calls me the next day. He's like, I'm not even gonna say anything. I'm gonna let her explain everything. And so we're on the three-way call, and she's like, well, we were, you know, being intimate. All of a sudden, he starts levitating and flying across the room. She was like, I thought he was Superman. I didn't know what to think. And I said, did you know what you were doing? He's like, because I had no clue. He's the next
I
thing.
have
One minute
not done that.
I'm on the bed. Next minute I'm naked, looking and facing the other direction. I was like,
Uh,
wow.
uh, I have never done that. That would be totally awesome.
So yeah, that was one of his funnier stories there. But
That would be just absolutely totally awesome. And she didn't run, so she was a
no,
really
no, she didn't.
special.
Yeah, she didn't.
She's a
She was
special
freaked out.
lady.
She was definitely a little freaked out. She's like, I thought he was Superman. He flew across the room. I said, was it, you know, was he moving fast? She's like, no, he's like he was just hovering and slowly, you
Just
know, levitating, you know, across the room, you know, naked. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's pretty wild.
yeah, and
So my
she
take on
didn't
that is
run, so
that
she's special.
yeah, that you know we all have this you know energy. You know the Kundalini energy is something that
Yeah.
we all have activated in us.
Well, we all have it, but not everybody's is activated.
And
And
true. Okay.
some
Exactly.
people, when it does activate, if they're not ready for it,
Right.
spiritually, it can make them go crazy.
Yeah, it can make them go crazy because
But
it's like having an access to a battery that's too much, like you can't contain it.
yeah,
Your vessel isn't ready for the energy
yeah.
and stuff.
So
And
I don't push anybody to do any of these things because
right,
when they're ready, they'll come ask. If they're
right,
not ready, they just sort of skunk eye
right.
you.
So, but my take on him was because he's getting this nuclear shot,
Yeah.
then you got this entity in him. Then you got this 33 life path. He said that most humans would not be able to contain their vessel would not be able to contain what he was trying to keep under control within him, keep it asleep.
Most humans would not be able to deal with what he was born as,
Yeah,
much less what they inserted.
right. And when we did the numerology, he knew he's like, I'm not coming back. He said, I'm not, he probably reincarnated so many times in this vessel because he wasn't, he's not gonna like incarnate, again. That was his final incarnation, here, um, on the planet. And when so the time before he died last time, um, he had come back so many times, I thought, okay, he's going to come back. So, I was working on him, sending him energy and everything, and then I get a phone call. He's like, hey, I'm back, out of a coma, and so,
You knew he was in trouble, so you were sending energy.
yeah, yeah. So I was sending energy and everything. And then what happened was, James passed and he
Yeah.
knew James. And,
Oh, really?
yeah, he
You
did
knew
know
James?
James. Yeah. And
For the
so,
audience, we're talking about James Rink.
yeah, James Rink. And so James wanted to do a veteran, something for the veterans and for the super, he had
Yeah,
a nonprofit. And
yeah.
Desmond wasn't, you know, he made a couple, super soldier comments and stuff, but he kept whatever was classified in him was classified in him.
You
Every
know,
once in a while he would,
99% of the super soldiers do that.
yeah,
There's
he,
only like 1% of us that have this drive. We have to talk.
right. you know, and Desmond wanted to help veterans, and and
Yeah,
James had a foundation that he wanted to,
yeah.
help veterans. And so, when James passed, I was kind of sad, and Des and I would talk every day, but he would pick up on my energy, so I was kind of sad that about James and stuff, and they kind of
Well,
passed about a week apart, you know.
James had been really hard on me the last 2 years of his life.
Yeah,
And
I know.
I had wanted an apology from him. I did not want him dead.
Hmm.
And I was very upset that he died.
Yeah. Yeah, James.
I was. James was the first person to bring me public and actually listen to what I had to say instead of barraging me with questions.
Right.
And I had a lot of respect that he was bringing people forward. But that last 2 years, it was like when he did a video and declared that I was dead and replaced by a clone,
That's terrible, Penny. I'm so sorry.
and he held a funeral service for me, and I'm sitting there, and at the moment I had a busted cyst in my knee, and
Oh my goodness.
I was sitting in a wheelchair
Oh
listening to
no,
him
Penny.
say this
I'm so
crap
sorry.
about me.
Oh no.
And I'm like, if I were replaced by a clone, wouldn't I hurt less?
Right.
But yeah, when he got sick, you could tell he got sick because he lost tremendous amounts of weight and he got really cranky.
Yeah. So
And I
I thought,
understood he was sick, so I didn't hate him. I just wanted an apology, you
right.
know.
Yeah.
And he did a
What?
lot of damage while he was sick. And I really, really wish he had gotten proper treatment instead of whatever he did,
Yeah.
because people don't have to die from Graves' disease.
Right.
One of my sons has it, and it's a simple remove the thyroid surgery and take pills afterwards.
Hmm.
He didn't have to die from that.
Right.
And that really bothers me.
Well, he called me, he told me that he thought he was poisoned, that he was at the gym and that he thought he had been, been poisoned and stuff. And but this was, a few months earlier where when it had started. But they both passed about a week apart,
Oh,
you know.
gee.
Yeah. So it was hard, and I was dealing with James, and that was hard. And then, you know, I wasn't, really working with I was just kind of just dealing with just trying to, comprehend, you know, everything. And then my cousin, I found out they called up and said that he had passed. So my take on what happened with my cousin was he left the body. They had done, he had gotten a gallbladder um, surgery, and when you have any type of cancer, it's like almost having like a zit inside your body. So it's
Yeah,
all contained in a little pouch. Okay. But when
yeah,
they do some type of biopsy or something, it pops it and it
yeah,
goes through your body.
yeah.
Okay. And so he had just recovered from that, but then they had to take he had some gallstones and they had to operate on to get those gallstones out.
Those are
And
painful.
so- yeah. And I had never, I'm talking about how strong I had never heard him ask for pain meds. They used to try to kill him by sending him. That was the other thing. He has a genetic um I guess, defect or whatever. He can't be addicted to anything. So could, no matter what pain meds they gave him, the doctor said he has a gene that prevents him from being addicted to anything. So they would
We
send
need to
him all
spread
these,
that gene.
huh?
We need to spread that gene.
Yeah. So the doctor said, he would show me all these meds that they would send him because they said they're trying to kill me. They're trying to get me addicted to this. He would just take the box and just throw it in the closet. He's like, I don't need it. He's like, I'm not
Yeah.
addicted to it. But they were trying, there were powers that be that wanted him, they didn't want him because he was a
They
reality
wanted him
creator.
drugged.
They wanted to control him. So,
Yeah.
that's another wild story. So when we were this was at Wright Pat Air Force Base.
That's
One
an
of the doc,
interesting place.
yeah, very, uh-huh. Um, one of the doctors wanted to put a morphine drip inside of his brain
Why?
now just to control him pretty much. My cousin was very well connected, and at the time he had John McCain.
Mm,
I don't care about any politics, but
yeah.
um,
Whether
he
you
had him
liked
on
his
speed
politics,
dial.
whether you liked his politics or not, he was a very powerful man.
Yeah, he was very powerful, and he had him on speed dial. And they were trying to, admit him and put this morphine drip um, on him in his brain, do this surgery and stuff. He called uh, Senator McCain. By the time the doctor had gotten back to his office, the MPs were there, escorting him off the base,
Wow.
you know. So, and that was, some of the other unusual, he was very, very well, connected. Um, he drove, you know, um, uh, what was it called? It was a Ferrari. Oh, I forgot the name. It just went blank. But he was like driving
McCain
like
or Desmond
no,
was
Desmond.
driving.
Yeah, yeah, he was driving the Ferrari, and he got stopped. He was going 120 out of a gas station. He got stopped. I'm on the phone with him.
No kidding, he got
Yeah,
stopped.
my cousin's very dark, and so the police stop him, and they look at his plates, and they check his ID, and they said, you just need to slow it down a little bit. And yeah, they didn't mess with him. Another time when he got stopped, they ran his ID, and they said that he was dead. And the computer said he was dead. He didn't exist and stuff. And they said, well, who are you? It's like, I look like I'm alive now. Like, you got the computer. I don't know what you're talking about. So, there were powers that be that
Yeah,
were
I've
always
had people, I've just told them, do I look dead to you?
right. So he had people who were protecting him, and then he had other people, might be in the same, group were trying to get rid of him and
Yeah,
stuff. So at the end of the day, what
a
I
lot,
realized that he was
a,
really protecting himself,
a
you know.
lot, a lot, a lot of super soldiers have that problem.
Hmm.
And even the ones of us who don't talk are often targeted because they're afraid we're gonna talk.
Right. And it's very sad that, people have to go through this, just thinking about James and thinking about my cousin, the amount of stuff that and yourself that you guys have had to endure, um, just terrible.
Uh, we've
Um,
lost, we've lost, starting with James, we've lost 4 people in the super soldier SSP community
oh wow,
since James died.
oh
And
wow,
your cousin makes the 5th that I've heard of.
mm,
So there's a lot of us being taken out
right,
currently. There's a super soldier SSP uh, woman. She's Hispanic, and she goes by the name Olivia James. And she had a regression hypnosis session with Misha Johnston. You know of her.
yeah,
And her alter that works for the CIA came up and just started spewing information about Project Oblivion, that there's a whole list of us who are targeted to be shut down, and another list of us who are targeted to be killed.
mm,
And she's been contacting the people that were targeted to be killed to warn us to be careful.
oh wow,
So I'm grateful that she's in my world and likes me.
yeah, yeah, definitely,
She,
yeah,
one thing the public doesn't understand is that all super soldiers that I have encountered have at least one grandparent who was a Merovingian. And most Americans don't realize that the royals of Spain and Portugal were Merovingians, and that they
hmm
left a lot of bastard kids, so You don't have to be a legitimate descendant of these people to be targeted for these programs. They're looking for your DNA, not whether you can inherit from them.
Hmm.
And you don't have to be pale like me to be a
Right.
Merovingian.
Hmm.
So there's lots of folks out there that don't look like me at all, but are still technically my cousins.
Right. Yep, we're all family. Yeah, at this point, I think everybody's kind of mixed in there, um, together.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and a lot of people
My
are,
opinion is we are all one species, or we would not be able to make babies together.
yep, very true.
So, you know, that's where I come from, and I hope more and more people agree with me over time.
And my cousin was the same way, you know. His even though, he was a little darker, we're still cousins.
Yeah, we're still cousins. And if he's from that same line, he's my cousin too.
Yeah, he's your cousin too.
So,
Yeah, the Thomas Jefferson line is very strong, very very powerful, and it was just really a privilege to learn all the different things and just have all these amazing um, adventures with him. He taught me so many different things. Just opened my mind to so many different possibilities. Just seeing him do all these wild things, and then seeing if I could do them too. And that's some of the stuff that I teach people, how to tap into some of these energies and how to tap into your own abilities. We all have different abilities,
yeah,
um,
we all have different abilities,
that no matter
and
who
we
you
all
are.
have them at different levels for different things.
Right,
There are things I'm really good at and things I really suck at.
right.
And everybody's going to be that way.
Yeah. And every once in a while, when you meet those people who do have those abilities, take some time and listen to them, try to learn. I think we all, one thing I did like about James was, I think he was the one that kind of started the whole community, at the beginning, that brought people together. Um,
Um, the
you know,
first one I was able to document online
hmm.
was Michael Ralph.
Okay.
And he was tormented by memories that he didn't know where they were. And his wife was a psychiatrist,
Hmm.
and she used muscle testing with him to figure out what he had been used for. And she still operates his website where he has two books that are free PDF downloads on the website. That was the earliest point in time that I ran across a super soldier who had been actually used in space.
Now, what was the name of that book? Do you remember?
Um,
Was that?
you can find it by doing not Google, one of the others. Google has him blocked.
Oh, wow.
I actually use yandex.ru. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I'm using a Russian site to find American super soldiers because the American search engines have him blocked.
Hmm.
But you use Yandex and you put it in English, and the search results come up in English.
Okay.
So there will be some that are in Russian, and if you can't read them, don't worry about it. Um, a lot of browsers will translate now.
Hmm.
when I was first hunting, they didn't. When I was first hunting, um, you could go into Google and get pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of stuff. And in 2016, they deleted about half of it
Wow.
or made it unsearchable. It
Right,
may
right,
still be online, you just can't find it.
right,
And about 2019 to 2021, they deleted about two-thirds of what was left. So you're left with this ever shrinking way to track things.
right. Oh, remember Wayback Machine, if you ever go to
The,
that site, it has
the
some of the
Wayback Machine, the trouble is the entire Internet Archive is currently in court because they're being sued for copyright infringement.
oh gosh. Mm,
But yeah, I love the Internet Archive.
yeah.
It is the most important source to find out old things that were publicly available on the internet for years, and now they're either dropped from the search engines or they're dropped from the internet entirely because websites are just expensive.
Yeah.
The website I had, the last time it came up for renewal, they wanted $3,000 that I
Oh
didn't have,
gosh.
and that's why I don't have it anymore.
No, good. Yeah, that's no,
You know,
that's what I'm talking about.
I was not going to do a GoFundMe for 3 grand to keep my website open.
Right, right.
It didn't have enough traffic to merit that.
Yeah,
So,
to make it back.
so
One of the other interesting, I'm looking this picture, he has these glasses. So I told you that my
yeah,
cousin,
his glasses are not so very different from mine. Mine are
yeah,
square
yeah.
and
I
dark silver.
so when he, I told you at the beginning that he scored a perfect score on his naval
Mm,
entrance exam.
the ASVAB.
So yeah, and
Yeah,
I was
my
work
kids took the ASVAB when they got out of high school and they all got over 70. So getting a perfect score is incredibly impressive to me.
right. Yeah, I was very impressed too. So I'm talking to him and I was working on some stuff and I was like, "Oh man, my eyes are messed up." And he's like, I'm blind." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm like legally I'm blind." I was like, "Well, what do you I've been driving with you?" He's like, "Yeah." So he tells me this story. Now, this is before he even, got injected. When he was 6 years old, his parents didn't have enough money, only had enough money for one child to get glasses,
Oh no.
and that was his sister. Okay. And, he was the brilliant one. Didn't have glasses. So there was an old lady across the street, and one day she called him over and he had some pebbles on in her hand. She said, "Can you see these?" He's like, "No." And he said, you're not in trouble, but I want you to come after school and we're going to work on reading." Okay. So from in that first grade, he would come after school up into this lady's attic and he would read the Bible. He said he's read the Bible probably more than most preachers, ministers around the world. He said he had to put the Bible so close to his face that his nose would touch the words in order to see it and stuff. And he
A high
said
school
after a
with a
while,
lady that was that blind.
yeah, after a while, he said the words just jumped up and they were in the air. And he could just, they would just show up in the air. He didn't need the book. And I went to, when he was going to college, he was in the, GI Bill. I would go some class. He could take a book and go, and just look through it, flip through it, and he could tell you what was on any page. He'd give you the page, you give him the page number, he could read it back to you. and stuff. And I thought he was just some, like
I'm
trick.
jealous.
I mean, me too.
I have stacks of books and my eyes cross just enough that yeah. And the
So
font
when
the
he,
font gets smaller by the year.
right, yeah, but he said that he said the words would just jump up in the air. And he said
Oh
after a
gosh.
while, it wasn't just books. He said I could read people like that. He said when I see people, what they are jumps, it's like like a little bubble. And he can see what's going on with the people. And it's like, in this air up in the
That
air.
would be a good thing to have.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when he no, he didn't get his glasses till after he entered the Navy. So he scored a perfect score on the naval entrance exam and he couldn't see. So they asked him, "How could you do that?" He didn't, he never told, explained it like, well, the words are popping up in the air. You know. But he told me the story, later on. He was really an amazing person, and I thank you for letting me share his story. Um,
I'm glad you asked me if I would be okay with it.
with and I try not to tear up. Um,
Yeah.
with everybody. Um, he told me that he felt, I told you thought he was like the government called him the second come. He called himself Job. He said
Mm.
he felt like he was here on the planet so people would, the pain that he was going through, would say, well, at least, I'm not going through that level of pain. He had to be one of the strongest people I've ever encountered
Yes,
uh,
without a
in
doubt.
my life. Um, and whenever I feel like there is something that I couldn't do, I would always, think about, how strong he was. And he's just a good person. And I just wanted everybody to know about him.
Well, I'm glad you did, and I hope I didn't interrupt too much.
No, no, I
And
appreciate it, Penny. And I know he's here, with us. And you know, um, I'm happy that, you know, I can share the story. I'm gonna, keep on sharing the story with other people. And I think that just seeing how strong he was and what he could do, um, has helped me, has helped my students, and hopefully helps your, viewers, realize that we're a lot more than we think we are, and we have more capabilities. Um, we're stronger, we're better people than sometimes we think we can be. We have more abilities than we think than we've actually tapped into. And it's important for us to keep working together and become stronger, fight the good fight and not never give up, you know. He came back 9 times, Penny, and you know, he never gave up. So I just, really appreciate you letting me, take the opportunity and um, share that with everybody.
well, thank you for coming. And with that, I think we're going to go.
Okay. Thank you.